What would you do? To hold on to power, some rulers built monuments. Others shed blood in battle, but one queen went further. She murdered children, not enemies on the battlefield, not rival generals, but babies, infants barely old enough to breathe, and she did it to keep her throne. This is the forbidden, blood-soaked tale of Queen Athaliah of Judah, a woman who rose above all tradition and left behind a legacy of terror. To understand how such horror unfolded, we must step back into the ancient world, the 9th century BCE, the kingdom of Judah, a land of prophets, kings, and divine promises. The throne of Judah was no ordinary seat of power. It was believed to be divinely chosen, destined to remain within the house of David, the bloodline of Israel's legendary king. To sit on that throne meant more than ruling a people, it meant ruling with heaven's blessing, or defying it. Athaliah was not born into this line, she was a foreigner to it, the daughter of Israel's infamous Queen Jezebel and King Ahab, and Jezebel's reputation was monstrous. She was remembered as a worshipper of false gods, a manipulator of kings, and a woman who ordered executions without a second thought. Her name became a curse. Athaliah grew up in Jezebel's shadow. She learned that power was fragile, that thrones could crumble, and that only ruthless strength kept crowns upon heads. When Athaliah married into Judah's royal family, she carried her mother's blood, and perhaps her mother's ruthless lessons, into Jerusalem itself. Athaliah became queen consort, wife to King Jehoram of Judah. Her life was secure, at least for a time, but Judah was a kingdom plagued with conflict, alliances, and betrayals. When Jehoram died, Athaliah's son Ahaziah rose to the throne. His reign was short, very short. Ahaziah was murdered in a violent coup, and suddenly, Athaliah was left alone, her husband gone, her son dead, and a throne without a ruler. This should have been the end of her story, but Athaliah was no ordinary woman. She saw what few women in her world dared to imagine. She could rule herself, but her path was blocked. The bloodline of David still lived. Dozens of royal heirs, princes, nephews, and infants stood between her and absolute power. Athaliah knew one truth: as long as those children lived, she was nothing but a placeholder, a usurper waiting to be overthrown. So she chose the unthinkable. The ancient text records it chillingly. When Athaliah saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal seed. Destroyed, such a small word for such immense horror. What it meant was massacre. Her soldiers moved swiftly through the palace. The royal nursery was no sanctuary. Cradles overturned, mothers silenced, the cries of children cut short. Athaliah gave the order: no heir must survive. The line of David must end. Imagine the terror of that night. Torches flickering against palace walls, the sound of boots echoing through the halls, and the whispers, "Hide the child. Quickly. She will kill them." But there was no hiding. Every chamber searched. Every infant accounted for. One by one, the children were slaughtered. Some historians suggest this massacre could have claimed dozens of young lives. Infants, toddlers, and boys barely old enough to speak, all erased in a single campaign of blood. And what makes it even darker, Athaliah was not just killing political rivals, she was killing her own family. Some of those children were her grandsons, her nephew, her blood. But bloodlines meant nothing when set against her throne. Athaliah emerged as the first and only woman to ever rule Judah. Her crown glittered in the sun, but beneath it lay the shadows of murdered children. For 6 years, Athaliah ruled, but her power was poisoned. The people remembered the massacre. Whispers filled the streets: the queen who killed her own blood, the queen who slaughtered babies. And to make matters worse, Athaliah brought with her the worship of Baal, the pagan god of her mother Jezebel. The holy temple of Judah stood in silence, while shrines to Baal rose under her protection. Priests fumed. Citizens trembled. Athaliah's throne was secure only as long as fear kept her enemies quiet. But fear has limits. Unbeknownst to Athaliah, her massacre had failed. In the chaos of the slaughter, one infant had been saved, a tiny boy named Joash. He was smuggled away by his aunt, Jehosheba, hidden deep within the temple of God. For 6 years, while Athaliah sat on her throne, Joash was raised in secret, nursed in silence, taught in whispers, protected by the very priests Athaliah had turned against. Imagine her palace. Grand, glittering, powerful. Now imagine, just a short distance away, a child growing stronger each day, the rightful heir, the living proof that her massacre had failed. Athaliah's paranoia must have been constant, every shadow a threat, every rumor of rebellion a dagger pointed at her back. And in the 7th year, her worst nightmare came true. The priests revealed Joash to the people. The boy was crowned king in a ceremony filled with shouts of loyalty and the clash of trumpets. The people rallied, the army turned, and Athaliah realized her throne was gone. She rushed into the temple, shrieking treason, but her words were drowned out by the roar of the crowd. Dragged from the holy place, she was executed at the city gates. Her reign ended with the same bloodshed with which it began. Athaliah's story is one of the darkest chapters in ancient history, a woman who rose where no woman had ruled before, a queen who seized power with ruthless determination. But who tried to secure her throne? By slaughtering the innocent. Was she a paranoid usurper clinging to power, a grieving mother, driven mad by loss, or was she simply the cursed daughter of Jezebel, destined to follow the same path of blood and ruin? Her name survives only in whispers and scripture. Her throne lasted only 6 years, her crimes, remembered for centuries, and the child she tried to kill, Joash, lived to reclaim the crown she stole. Perhaps that is the final lesson of Athaliah's reign, that no matter how many you silence, how many lives you take, truth has a way of surviving, but the cries of the children she murdered echo still, and they are louder than her crown.